HOA installed Wi-Fi repeaters on my roof, so I switched the provider and charged them for bandwidth. Update 2. The first thing I did after setting the bait was give it a name. Operation Bandwidth Clampdown. It felt appropriately petty, ominous and just techie enough to sound like something from a spy movie. I wasn't just going to cut off their Wi-Fi, I was going to charge them for it. After all, if they insisted on using my roof for their signal, then why not treat it like a premium service? But to make it work I had to be surgical. One false step and they'd notice something was off. Karen would storm back into my life with another nonsense legal threat, and the HOA would circle the wagons. No, this had to be subtle, at least at first. I began by building a fake splash page that looked like a genuine provider agreement update. It had the right colors, the right fonts, even a little fake logo I whipped up in Photoshop called Skyfiber Enhanced. It was triggered the moment someone connected to the repeater signal to the unsuspecting residents, using the free Wi-Fi. It just looked like a routine policy update. Something no one ever reads, except this one contained a clause, small and buried deep, that said users agree to pay 27 cents per megabyte consumed after 50 megabytes per day. And since I had access to the repeater traffic, I could track everything. Every video streamed, every download, every ridiculous data-draining TikTok marathon. It worked faster than I expected. Within the first 24 hours, the page had already logged 10 separate acknowledgements. I had names, I had IP addresses, I had data. More importantly, I had digital consent. I set up automatic invoices, each one sent from a freshly registered business email from my shell company, DataLink Utility Services. It sounded just professional enough to sound legit, and just vague enough to avoid suspicion. The bills weren't enormous yet. The first wave of invoices went out the next day. $50 here, $100 there. Enough to sting, but not enough to cause immediate rebellion. And just to sprinkle in some chaos, I sent one directly to the HOA treasurer, Mr. Harold Tompkins, for a cool $18,642. He paid it without question. The real comedy began when Karen herself received an invoice for $2,129, and marched back into the HOA office demanding answers. Except this time, she wasn't angry at me. She was angry at the new provider. She thought the HOA had signed up for some shady service without telling her. I watched the whole meltdown unfold via a hidden repeater cam I had rigged up for monitoring. Karen waving the invoice in the air like it was a bomb threat. Harold defending himself with vague mutterings about vendor trials. It was digital theater, and I had front row seats. But just as I was getting comfortable in my villainous little throne, the HOA struck back in their classic predictable way. Paper citations. I woke up one morning to find 3 letters taped to my door. One was for unauthorized rooftop equipment. The second was for non-compliant electrical routing. The third, and my personal favorite, was for public endangerment through unstable antenna deployment, which was hilarious considering they were the ones who installed the antennas in the first place. It was petty. It was ridiculous, and it only fueled me more. Rather than respond directly, I decided to escalate quietly. I started digging into HOA regulations, the bylaws, the power use agreements, the digital rights clauses. You'd be amazed how vague and outdated most HOA tech policies are. They were written in a time when the biggest digital threat was someone stealing cable with a wire hanger. The rules were so laughably out of date that I realized I could practically write my own interpretation, and no one would understand it enough to fight me on it. That's when fate handed me the perfect wild card. Miss Penelope Baxter. She lived 2 doors down, rarely spoke, always wore oversized gardening hats, and was generally assumed to be a harmless retiree. Turns out she was anything but. She knocked on my door one evening holding a glass of lemonade and said, "I saw what they did to your roof. They did the same thing to mine back in the day, but they didn't know I used to work for the FCC." I nearly dropped my drink. Penelope wasn't just a retired retiree. She was a retired federal compliance officer, who had spent 30 years auditing illegal frequency use and unauthorized equipment installations. And when I showed her pictures of the repeaters, and explained what they'd done, her face went cold. She muttered something about unlicensed hardware, code violations, and jail time, and then asked if I had more detailed specs. I invited her in and within 10 minutes, we were reviewing repeater logs, transmission reports, and energy consumption graphs, like 2 hackers plotting a heist. She was loving every second of it, and I was loving having a surprise ally with the legal teeth to bite. But it didn't stop there. With her help we discovered something even more damning. The repeaters weren't just using my internet. They were tapping into my electrical grid. The installation had been done by one of the HOA's preferred contractors, who had conveniently spliced into my line to save cost. That meant I was footing the electric bill for every bit of traffic that passed through their system. All those hours of streaming, all those late-night gaming sessions, every gigabyte pulled was burning my kilowatt. So I decided to play a little prank. I built a program that injected a 6-minute reset loop into the repeater's firmware. Every 6 minutes, the signal would drop, reboot, and log the event. It created chaos. Kids were screaming at Fortnite. Parents couldn't stream their shows. Smart devices started acting possessed. The best part, every time it rebooted, it played a short audio file I embedded into the reset cycle. A robotic voice that said, "Network interruption, please contact your provider." People were furious. Karen sent out a community-wide email calling it a cyber attack, and blaming unnamed hackers. She ordered the HOA to investigate the provider, while I sat comfortably on my couch, watching the chaos play out across neighborhood forums and group chat. I even joined a few of them anonymously, just to stir the pot. One guy thought it was a government test, another blamed solar flares. My favorite was someone who said it was divine punishment for the HOA's behavior. I couldn't disagree. Now you can watch the third part by pressing share and more.